Okay, good morning once again. I'm Joshua Fontana. I'll be talking about what's new in drawings with Creo 4.0. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the webinar agenda. So we'll be going over a short introduction of who is Boundary Systems, and then we'll jump right into what's new in drawings with Creo 4.0, which will include some slides, and then I'll actually do some demonstration of that. And then we'll have a Q&A afterwards if you guys have any questions. So first off, about Boundary Systems, we are a tech leader that consists of partners of PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, ZWCAD, and other tech companies. So we sell their solutions. We are the 16th fastest growing private company in greater Cleveland area, which some of our companies, as displayed here, consist of that we provide solutions for are Fives, Hendrickson, ViewRay, Little Tykes, and et cetera, et cetera. So our capabilities consist of product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and also product development. So Boundary Systems has a couple awards associated with them also from Inc. 5000 and also the Weatherhead 100. And some of our other accreditations consist of a Windchill certified implementer. We're also PTC preferred service provider, and we're also a PTC certified training partner. So you can have all your training done through Boundary Systems that's PTC related. Okay, so some of the solutions that we do offer do come from PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, and ZWCAD. So now, if you have any technical questions regarding the information here, you can contact me, Joshua Fontana, at jfontana@boundarysys.com. Or if you have any sales-related questions, then you can email sales@boundarysys.com. Okay, so let's jump right into the drawing portion of the webinar. So first off, let's talk about what's new in the drawing package. So as far as the annotation workflow, there's been some enhancements. So a new workflow has been created for many of the annotation types to help improve the efficiency of annotating 3D models. Okay, this workflow enables you to intuitively create and edit dimensions, GTOLs, dimension feature symbols, and datum targets. Okay, so there is now an immediate preview of your annotation during the creation and editing. So as you're dragging you select your references for your dimension or your GTOL, there's a preview connected directly to your cursor even before you place it. So you have a good idea of where you're placing it and the orientation of your dimension and everything of that nature. Also, when the annotation is actually selected, you'll see there in figure 2 that the ribbon is context sensitive. So now you'll get this if you select a GTOL in this case in figure 2. The GTOL tab will show up in the ribbon where you can manipulate that. Also right next to that, as you see in figure 2, is the format tab. So if you just want to format the text to maybe a different size, or if you want a different text format, then you can manipulate it at that point. So those things pop up automatically once you select the individual dimension, GTOL, datum target, or what have you. Okay, next is understanding semantic references. So here in 2D drawings, you can establish a semantic reference link between datum feature symbols and other annotations, okay? So as we see there in figure 1, we have a datum target that's being created. So we would like to reference the actual datum to reference. So all we have to do is select the A datum symbol, and then we can reference that. So the nice thing about that is that it updates. There's some intelligence built into it. So as we see in figure 3, is that if we change the datum from A to B, then its reference also updates. Okay, so there's also some syntax checking associated with your GTOLs. So Sigmatrix provides the logic to check syntax when creating annotations. So syntax checking is performed automatically in real time for things like datum feature symbols, datum targets, and GTOLs. And there is some, as we see in all of these graphics here in figure 1, 2, and 3, is that if you put something that's not supported within the context of the syntax, then it'll prompt you and say, hey, in the case of figure 2, that's not supported by ANSI standards, okay? And there's other syntax like the letter O isn't supported either because it's close to 0, so that's also a violation. And it highlights it right there. Okay, next we'll talk about creating datum feature symbols. So you can create datum feature symbols with different placement types. So there's your 2 standard placement types. You can either place it by creating one at the drawing level, or you can just show the datum feature symbol as we see in figure 3 using the show model annotations dialog box. So if you create your datum feature symbol at the part level with the 3D annotations, then you can just show them just like any other dimension. Okay, so if you decide to create these at the drawing level, certain references can be selected, like edges, a point on a surface, or a dimension, or a GTOL can be attached to also, as we see in figure 1, different attachment types. And then after the fact, you can always modify by adding additional text and things of that nature to the actual feature symbol. So next is actually creating datum targets at the drawing level. So you can create datum targets to specify locations on a model to establish a datum. So here you can just select a datum target and then place the target area and then specify what type of target area we want. So in figure 1, we see various ways of specifying the area and the size. So we have point, circle, and then we have rectangle or square. Okay. So again, there's some syntax here associated with that that can be checked. And you can also reference other datum feature symbols so that if your data feature symbol changes, then the datum target also changes. And also various editing options, as we can also see here in figure 1. So if you want to be able to rotate your datum target from its leader or have the text outside of the actual symbol, then you can do that. Next is applying geometric tolerances. So geometric tolerances are displayed in the standard layout called feature control frame, as we all know. So this can all be applied to the at the drawing level. So the standard way to do that before, if you were going to place a GTOL at the drawing level, there was a dialog box that popped up, and then you'd have to configure your feature control frame appropriately. Now all this information is controlled up in the ribbon in its own tab, and is much more user-friendly and easy to use. And then creating your standard driven dimensions. So again here, the big thing here is that there is an immediate preview of your dimension after you select even your first reference. So we see there in figure 2 that we select an edge for our dimensional reference. It gives us that preview. And then we can always hold the control key down to select multiple references for our dimension, and then middle mouse button to place the dimension as usual. Oh, another thing here to point out is, just like with your feature control frames and your other datums, things of that nature placed at the drawing level, again, the selection is context sensitive, so that if you select an actual dimension, then as we see in figure 4, that format dialog box pops up, or not the dialog box, it's the up in the ribbon, so it's a tab, pops up so you can format that dimension appropriately. Then another nice thing about the new things about Creo 4.0 and the drawing package is that you can embed raster images into the drawing. For example, if you want to insert a chart or a graph, then you can insert that into your drawing. As we see here in figure 1, we have this pump. So there's different scenarios of pump flow or characteristics that was done out in the lab. We take that information and then we can put that right into our drawing. And then do some manipulation, as we see, like control, translate it, rotate it, and scale it appropriately. And another new feature here is the ability to replace views of different models. So let's say we have our drawing laid out, we have dimensions associated with them, and we have a family table of parts, or maybe we have different simplified representations of those parts. We can swap out the model representations, or if we have a family table, we can swap out and replace the view with another representation or part in a family table. So that's pretty powerful, and I can see that saving a lot of people a lot of time. And during the actual demonstration, I'll show you how you can swap out those views, and then what you'll realize is that if you swap from one part of a family table to another, the dimensions already go away. Or if you go back to the previous part in the family table, the dimensions will reappear also. So you don't have to reapply those dimensions over again. Okay, so next is the ability to have nonlinear hatch patterns. Okay, so you're cross-hatching here. There's a lot more examples here as we see within the hatch patterns dialog. There's aluminum, clay, copper, and electric, glass, insulation. So there's all sorts of new nonlinear crosshatch patterns in Creo Parametric. And then you can always, if there's something that's not available, you can always download them as it states through the internet. There's a lot of them available online. And then PTC now provides ASME and ISO compliant Truetype formats in Creo 4.0. So each standard has its own default general text fonts. So this is just an example of those two differences there. So we have ASME, and we also at the top in figure 1, and then we have ISO symbol fonts also down in figure 2. Okay, so again, if you have any more technical questions, you can contact me, or if you have sales related questions, you can contact sales. So at this point, we'll go ahead and jump into the demonstration portion of the webinar. So first off, let me go ahead and show you how to put in some datum feature symbols. So right here, you can just simply apply a datum feature symbol to the selected references. So this is creating them at the drawing level. So again, we can just hover over our feature and then utilizing the left mouse button for placement, and then middle mouse button or left mouse button for selection references, and then middle mouse button to place it. Then you can place it just like any other dimension. So I'll go ahead and create another one and select this bottom surface reference again. Okay, so we'll notice that it automatically increments as we place them. So we'll place another one over here, and we can notice just by selecting it, it's context sensitive, so it comes up with the datum feature tab up here and the format tab. So we can go ahead and modify this and watch it update. So in the format tab, just to show you, we see that there's other text formatting here associated with, in this case, that datum feature. So let me show you some other attachment types. So those are just two straight linear edges or surfaces. So I can also select this radial edge and place that. Again, notice it increments. Other placement types would include a dimension. So maybe we want to apply a datum feature symbol to a dimension. Okay, both linear dimension and maybe this dimension with the diameter. So of course PTC has been putting a lot of right mouse button functionality in ever since they switched over from Wildfire. So it's always logical to see what's in that right mouse button window. So we see here the dimension elbow checkbox is checked. We can also uncheck that so it goes down to our arrow. And then it is attached to our dimension still. We can manipulate the dimension, drag it around, and it'll update appropriately. So another location we may want to apply a datum feature symbol is directly to a feature control frame. So we have a GTOL right here. We can select for placement. Okay, so that's creating these at the drawing level. Of course, a lot of people, or some people, like to utilize 3D model annotations. So let me go ahead and open up the actual model associated with this, and we see this part here. So we'll go to the Annotate tab, and then we can see that we already have a annotation here. So rather than creating them, we can just apply them with the Show Model Annotations. So I'll select the actual view, and then over here we have our Show Model Datums. If we scroll down, we see our datum tag right there. So we can apply that. Just depends on your design intent. So other manipulation you can do is by selecting the actual datum, you can add additional text. Let's say you want to say B1. Okay, I press enter, and then it places that text beside by default. And we can always change the location by toggling through the options here with the rotate text position. If we need to add an elbow, then we can add an elbow here. So that's just some manipulation tools that you can utilize. So next, let's talk about adding the actual datum targets. So here again is another drawing. It has some dimensions, already has some datum features associated with that. So we're going to go ahead and add some datum targets. So our datum target in this case is going to associate with this side view. So we'll select this surface and then place our datum target. So in this case, the target area is just a point. So we can change that into a circle, and then maybe the circle diameter of the target area needs to be modified also. So maybe we want to utilize or reference an existing datum to this datum target area. So we can do that right here by selecting this reference here and then the actual datum. So it fills in the datum target here. So then the nice thing is that, again, this is all parametric. So if I change one, it changes the other. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that for now. And it looks like let's change this. There we go. So that's the circle type. So we can also add other types of datum target areas. So let me go ahead and add another one here. Maybe we don't want a circle, we want a rectangle or square area. So in this case, we're going to make the area 0.75 units by 1.5 units. Okay, so the placement reference here is a little bit outside of our datum target area, so we can just drag this down to something a little better, a little more logical there. Okay, and then also move the datum target symbol. So the text here is a little bit bigger than the actual placement, so we can always move that text outside. So again, just by selecting on the actual text, the datum target area tab shows up in the ribbon. Also the format tab. So something else you can do is maybe you want this to be movable. So we can make it a movable datum target and then rotate the symbol appropriately to further meet our design intent. So now let's talk about creating geometric tolerances. So in this case, we'll go ahead and apply a geometric tolerance to this auxiliary view over here. So notice the tolerance is already attached to our cursor. All we have to do is select a placement reference. So in this case, right on the surface, and then place the GTOL itself. Okay, and then we have the geometric tolerance tab up in the ribbon that we can further modify the feature control frame. So in this case, we want angularity tolerance with a tolerance of 0.05. And again, we want this to reference an existing datum. So the primary datum, we want it to be the A datum plane. And it becomes part of that feature control frame automatically. Then if this changes, then this would change also. If it became D instead of A, then your feature control frame would change. Okay, so let's create a couple more of these GTOLs. So in this case, let's create a GTOL here, and then place it also, and then change the type of geometric tolerance to a perpendicularity relative. Let's change the tolerance value 0.02, and the primary and tertiary values are going to be primary and secondary, and B. So we may need to change this afterwards. So of course, since we're in Creo 4.0, we can just select that, and again, the GTOL tab shows up in the ribbon. So we can further format this. So we may want to have some more text associated with this, or symbols. So we can add symbols to the text here. So maybe we want a statistical tolerance symbol here. We can come over here and just place it right in. What we can also do is add text to the feature control frame. So we can add text around it. So right here, there's additional text that we can add. So maybe this wants to reference two surfaces. Now we can type right in here. And then we see 4 different areas to apply text around the feature control frame. So next we'll talk about creating driven dimensions. So these are dimensions that are not applied at the model level or the part level. They're applied only at the drawing level. So we'll go ahead and utilize some right mouse button functionality to create a dimension. And just by selecting your reference, we can see already that dimension is attached to our cursor for better viewing of placement of that dimension. then middle mouse button to place that just like before. We'll place some more dimensions here. We'll select this whole feature, okay? So rather than selecting it twice, I can just select it once and then utilize right mouse button functionality to change it to a diameter. And then place it. We'll place a couple more dimensions. So in this case, just a standard linear dimension of that one reference. And then if you need to select multiple, so in this case I want the width of this part, but I only selected this one reference, you can just hold the control key down to select multiple references. Same with our angle dimensions here. So it gives us our initial dimension and then control for our secondary reference for this angle. Then if we select the text itself, again we see the dimension tab up here show up with different formatting options of the actual dimension and then text formatting options also. So one of the nice things here is that's pretty new is if I select, let's say, the edge of this hole for a dimension, it gives me this radius value. And then maybe I want a tangent dimension associated with this other feature. So it gives me this option. And I can drag my cursor up to see another option for placement. But if I utilize the right mouse button, I can set it to either horizontal or vertical. Or if I have a parallel or perpendicular reference that I want to associate it with, I can utilize that also. So in this case, I want it to be horizontal, so it stays horizontal no matter where I drag my cursor. So what's really nice is that I can select this dimension and then the dimension tab pops up because maybe I didn't want to be on the outside of this circle, I want it to be on the inside. So I want it to be a min value. So we can always modify this right here. We can change both leader options. So maybe I want the maximum value of both scenarios. Or maybe the minimum. So you can always change that without actually having to re-reference the dimension. And then the last type of dimension here I'll show you is a dimension that we want to have at an intersection that isn't there. So we'll just select these two features here and it gives us that intersection point and then another reference. So we can see where that intersection would be. And then let's talk about actually replacing these model views, okay? So we have the views already placed here of this gearbox, okay? So it has dimensions associated with it already, but we would like to replace this with another family table instance. So in this case, I can go to replace model, replace view model, select the appropriate view, and then what do we want to replace this by? A family table, a simplified rep, or a reference model? In this case, I have a family table built already, so I can just select another option. So do notice that the handles right here on the sides of the gearbox and all the views, the dimensions associated with those handles, once I select the family table that does not, is without handles, those dimensions and those features go away, of course, because it's associated with that family table instance. But we can always go back. Since it's a family table, we can always select the generic part, reapply those handles, and those dimensions associated with those handles are automatically applied. So the same type of feature can be utilized with simplified reps. So there is a simplified representation of this part that we can grab. In this case, there's multiple holes here for mounting that we can have a representation that would exclude those features, which we have here. So that's called holes filled. So we'll just apply this simplified rep to replace that model. So we can see the holes go away and the dimensions associated with those holes also go away. And then again, it is reversible, so we can always go the other way. If we want to have the master rep reapplied, we see the dimensions get reapplied with those holes. So it's pretty powerful stuff there. That pretty much rounds out the demo that I have for creating, or what's new in Creo 4.0 detailing. So again, if you guys have any other questions for me regarding Creo Parametric, you can contact me here on my email address, or if you have any sales related questions, you can contact sales@boundarysys.com, or you can just go to boundarysys.com website and view a lot of information. So the one thing I do want to bring up is that we do have webinars and we do have hands-on workshops on a regular basis. So if we go to our Boundary System website and then to the events, then here's our schedule of our hands-on workshops and webinars that you can register for. So if I'm going to select hands-on workshop here, and we see in May we have a hands-on workshop for what's new in Creo 4 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, so we have quite a few hands-on workshops going on here that are coming up. So if you'd like to register for them, then you can do that. And these are free hands-on workshops that you can just show up and use the software and then get more familiar with the technology. Same with the webinars. If you don't get an email, or maybe there's a specific technology that you want to register for. So we have a lot of emails lined up, varying from wind chill topics to Creo Parametric topics. We also do things with Moldflow, MoldEX, simulation software. So we have a lot of stuff going on. So feel free to come in to the Boundary Systems website and register for any of those events. So now I'll go ahead and take a look at some of the questions you guys have. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in your GoToWebinar dialog box. And I see there is a couple here already. Let's see. So the question here is, can the webinar be emailed? This webinar will be uploaded to YouTube. So feel free to go to YouTube and check out our YouTube page. We have a lot of our webinars already uploaded there for your viewing pleasure. So the next question is it possible to turn off the immediate preview permanently? So he's asking if you can turn off the preview of the dimensions, I'm assuming, so that it does not show as your before you place the dimension. That's something I'll have to look into. I would imagine there is a Config Pro option associated with that, but I haven't really looked into it yet. But that's a good question. I will certainly look into that, and you will be getting an email from me later. Okay, so another question here is, how do you create a center mark for a hole or radius? Okay, so whenever you create a hole, in this case, let me just move this dimension. So if you have your model has a hole and it has an axis already associated with it, then you just show that at the drawing level. So Creo Parametric allows you to just show those axes, or center marks as you're calling them, at the drawing level without having to actually create them line by line. So let me go ahead and show one of those. So I'm going to select this hole feature. So initially it's giving me this dimension to show model annotations because that's an annotation associated with the model, but I would just like to show the datum feature associated with that feature. So that's what this is here. So I can apply this axes feature to at the drawing level, okay? So that gives us our center mark. Of course, this can be manipulated a little bit as we need to, furthermore. I hope that answers your question. So the next question is about manipulating GTOLs at the model level. So the question is if you can manipulate the GTOL at the model level the same way you do at the drawing level. That's a good question. We actually have a webinar we did a couple weeks ago about model-based definition that is already up on YouTube. You can check it out. It explains that pretty well. I didn't really bring that into this webinar, the model-based definition stuff, because that was already covered. But the syntax checking and things of that nature associated with your GTOLs is all associated down to the part level. So it's very much the same way, yes. But please feel free to go to YouTube and do check out that YouTube video. So the other question here about model-based definition is there any tutorials to get started with that? So again, our YouTube video is pretty good. Let me show you that real quick, because it should be right here. So it's, if you go to Boundary Systems YouTube channel, let's see, videos, and then it should be right here. So it's 30 minutes of talking about the GD&T advisor, and it's pretty good. Other locations for information of that is the help section, which is really good. If you're not familiar with PTC products, they actually have a good help center, and there's great topics here for introduction and what's new in Creo 4. So there's a bunch of topics relative to fundamentals as far as the GD&T advisor as shown here. Augmented reality stuff and all sorts of stuff, okay? So also there's Creo tutorials here, okay? So for beginner tutorials. So feel free to check that out also if you already have Creo Parametric. Is there any more questions? Okay, it doesn't look like any more questions are trickling in. So those are good questions. Again, if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me or check out our website. Or if you have any sales related questions, contact sales at sales@boundarysys.com. Okay, thank you for your time and have a good day.